Well, California Attorney General Rob Bonta is suing the Trump administration over the deployment of the National Guard.
And he is joining us now live in studio. Thank you so much for being with us. I know you're so busy talking through all of this. First, walk everybody through the lawsuit and what you're hoping to accomplish here.
Absolutely. Yesterday, we filed a lawsuit in the Northern District of California here, right in California, because of what has happened with the president's power grab. That's unlawful. It's unprecedented. It's an unnecessary and counterproductive escalation, reckless and dangerous, and honestly insulting and disrespectful of our National Guard, who are patriotic and are being treated as political pawns. And we argue that there is no authority to call in the National Guard. The statutory authority that the president points to does not authorize him to call in the National Guard. There's no invasion that needs to be repelled, no rebellion that needs to be suppressed, no inability to execute federal laws, which is required in the statute. The statute also requires that the governor be consulted and consent to the calling in of the National Guard, which certainly has not happened. So it's an unlawful deployment of the National Guard, so we've taken him to court to render the order invalid and to stop this unnecessary, dangerous, and reckless escalation.
Yesterday, we saw President Trump double down on that, though, deciding to send 700 Marines and double the National Guard deployment. There are people watching on TV seeing cars being set on fire, streets being blocked. How do you respond to people who say things seem to be out of control?
We have the largest sheriff's department in the nation. We have the third largest police department in the nation. They are well-resourced, highly trained, have dealt with crime. It's what they do. It's their bread and butter. This isn't the first set of violent activities that they've seen. This is what they do. They are fully capable. Before the National Guard came, they used their own resources and only their own internal resources to address the challenges on the street. They didn't need to call mutual aid. There is a logistical progression to invite and bring in mutual aid if necessary. Some mutual aid was brought in when necessary, and then the National Guard can be brought in if the governor decides that, but that the governor has not decided that. The LA Sheriff's Department and LA Police Department are fully capable with the potential for mutual aid to address these challenges, and the National Guard is unnecessary, and frankly, it's a provocation and inflammation of tensions and an escalation that it seems the president wants. This is a manufactured crisis. It is an artificial controversy. He wants the chaos. He wants the confusion. Unfortunately, he might even want to be inciting violence. There's no need for these patriots to be here. We shouldn't have the militarization of American cities on American soil. Civilian law enforcement polices civilians. And so this is unlawful. That's why we've taken the president to court to render invalid his unlawful decision.
A couple things here. I covered the George Floyd protests in Minnesota, and that governor was highly criticized that he did not call in National Guard troops for several days. The president was then criticized that he didn't send them in, said at that point he couldn't send them in until a governor called in that particular instance. What do you think has changed here within the administration, and why now?
The willingness to run roughshod over the law. That seems to be increasing. The president's statement in 2020 was right, that he needs to follow the law and he cannot call in the National Guard himself. The governor needs to call in the National Guard. That is an accurate statement of the law. It applied then, it applies now. But he doesn't want to follow it now because he wants to politically weaponize this moment and use the military as political pawns. And the executive order doesn't even mention LA or California, by the way. It's broad sweeping in its geographic application. It can apply to any state. It also is broad in its time frame. It is for 60 days. It's not a precise response to a particular moment of violence. They want to put military personnel in our American cities for 60 days all across the nation, potentially.
Well, and what concerns me a little about the Marines being brought in, they're not generally used for crowd control. They're used as lethal agents in many instances. So what is the concern here? People may not know the differences between the National Guard and the Marines being brought in.
They both do very important things. They both do very different things. The Marines are some of our most highly trained military personnel. We rely on them for our most important sensitive missions to get the job done. They've done that with valor and bravery all over the world. For them to be standing by, primarily doing nothing, and not being needed and necessary is a completely disrespectful of their abilities, their training, and improper use to have military on American soil. The National Guard is doing really important things as well. They're on the border protecting against the inflow of fentanyl. They got pulled away from that important task to sleep without water and without food in crowded areas, unattended to. Again, a waste of their important abilities. They're also tackling wildfires as we enter wildfire season here in California. Again, they've been pulled away from those important duties and obligations to sit around as political pawns of Donald Trump. But you're right, the Marines and the National Guard have different missions and different types of training.
How do you see this playing out in the courts? Do you think the courts will side in your favor and stop Trump from deploying them here?
We do. We are confident in our case, confident in the law. It clearly states the requirements that are needed for the president to call in the California National Guard as opposed to the governor. It also requires consultation and consent of the governor. Those are clearly not present here. We only sue when we believe we have the law and the facts on our side and believe we'll prevail. We believe we'll prevail here and that the court will order the deployment by the president of the National Guard in Los Angeles unlawful.
I do want to ask you, Katherine Barger, who has been very prominent through the wildfires, she's a LA County supervisor. She was on a different media outlet today saying that this could have all been avoided if that the city had just, and jails would cooperate with ICE agents and turn over criminals to them, that both sides have some partial blame in the escalation of all of this. What do you make of that?
I think there's a bunch of different perspectives on this issue. And I do want to clarify that the public safety jurisdiction law of California does provide for jails cooperating with ICE when the felonies or misdemeanors, the charges involved are serious and violent. So I'm not sure that important component of California's law was captured by Supervisor Barger's statement. And I think it's very appropriate that LA City, LA County, the California have decided to be public safety jurisdictions where we focus on tackling crime, where we promote public safety, we investigate and we arrest and we prosecute for crime, not civil immigration enforcement, especially when there are whole departments and agencies in the federal government who have the resources to do that. They can do it lawfully, but we want to focus on crime, on murder and rape and burglary and robbery, keeping people safe. And when victims and witnesses know that they won't be retaliated against if they work with law enforcement, they will come forward. And that helps law enforcement and it helps keep our community safer. So respectfully have some different perspectives than the supervisor, but appreciate all perspectives in this dialogue.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks
Yes,
for
we
having me.
appreciate this. We'll continue to follow, of course.